Welcome everybody to today's episode of Vengeful Vegas, True Crime in Sin City. I'm your host Janice.
And I'm Bonnie.
And before I get into today's episode, Bonnie is going to tell you about how missing persons are defined by the Las Vegas Police Department, some common misconceptions, and how you can report a missing person, or the sighting of a missing person. Typically at the beginning of each episode, we're going to tell you about an active missing persons case, but for our first episode, we want to give you a little bit of background on missing persons. So, Bonnie.
So there's a common misconception that when an adult goes missing, you have to wait for 72 hours to report them missing. This is false. You can report it right away. Typically, a missing adult will return within 48 to 72 hours after being reported, but not all do. If you suspect something is wrong, report them missing. Being a voluntary missing person is not a crime. It is your right to simply walk away and ignore family and friends, associates, and employers. However, because it's not a crime, law enforcement is limited in how they conduct their investigations. If foul play is suspected, the police will investigate. Also, if the person is considered endangered due to medical problems or a criminal act, police will investigate. To file a missing persons report, you can call the non-emergency number at 702-828-3111, or you can go to any Las Vegas Metro Police Department area command to make a report. Be prepared to give as much information about the missing person and their circumstances as you possibly can. The police will enter them into a system known as SCOPE, and this does not give them a criminal record, so don't worry, it just helps them find the missing person. If the missing person returns, you need to notify the police as soon as possible. Call the missing person detail on weekdays at 702-828-2907 or on weekends and after hours at 702-828-3111. Missing children are classified as voluntary, abducted by a parent, abducted by a stranger, or cause of disappearance unknown. A runaway child is considered a voluntary missing juvenile. It is not a crime for them to run away, but they are always considered at risk. Police are empowered under the law to take a runaway child into protective custody, but the child will not be placed in a lockdown facility or detention center. They can take them to the runaway shelter at West Care Women and Children's Campus. The address is 5659 West Duncan, Las Vegas, Nevada. Police cannot make a forced entry into a private home to recover a runaway child. For example, if they go to their grandmother's house and just want to be at their grandmother's house instead of at home. If the child is in danger or in a life-threatening situation, the police can enter that home in these circumstances. Police can also assist parents when a runaway is uncooperative or if there is a risk of violence. The first 48 hours following a runaway are the most important in locating a child. Many return, but not all do. You need to immediately check with friends and family, report them as a runaway, make sure they're entered in the National Crime Information Center. You need to keep up the search for them on your own. Check local sports that your child may be involved in. Check schools, hospitals, and juvenile detention centers. Never give up looking for them until you know where they are. You can call the National Runaway Switchboard at 1-800-621-4000 and leave a message. You can also post to their Facebook page, Missing in Las Vegas. There you can get even more help by getting their picture and information out to the public. Many hands make light work, and the more people that know about your missing person, the better the chances of them being found.
Thanks for that, Bonnie. So in this episode of Vengeful Vegas, I am going to tell you about one of the major players from the mob that helped build Sin City into what it is today. So Bonnie and I met in 2000 when we both moved to Las Vegas with our families. So when we moved to Vegas, I had always kind of heard about the mob running Las Vegas, and I think Bonnie did too.
I didn't really care much. It wasn't that big of a deal to me.
Yeah, but you heard about it, didn't you?
I don't remember.
Well, when we moved to Vegas in 2000, the mayor of Las Vegas was Oscar Goodman, and he is known as the lawyer for the mob. So when the mob was really big in the U.S., he was the lawyer they would call to help them get out of a jam, and he did pretty good at his job. But eventually he got tired of doing that and decided to run for mayor, and he became mayor in 99. And I don't know if the mob had anything to do with that, because as far as I know, the mob still exists, and it definitely still exists in Vegas, at least in my opinion. I just want to believe that they're always going to be there.
They will be.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I say that I kind of feel like he's still pulling strings, or the mob's still pulling strings in the government for the city of Las Vegas, is because after Oscar Goodman was mayor, somehow his wife Carolyn was then elected to follow in his footsteps, and she's the mayor now. So
you know what? That actually rings a bell now that we're mentioning his wife. I remember when she got elected, my family talking about how he was crooked and they got her elected unethically. So yeah, it's a lot more prominent for locals than I remember it being.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he was really part of the mob. I mean, I listened to his book because I listen to a lot of books because I hate reading. But I like books. So, yeah, I listen to a lot of books. And I listened to the biography from Goodman where he was talking about his life. And he says that he was never a part of the mob, that he was very careful not to be a part of it. But
I think that's just what he wants people to believe.
Yeah.
It's too incriminating if he, claims that he was part of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know if I would ever want to say I was or I wasn't if I was him. So, hey, I don't know. Sin City elected him mayor. Well, as far as we know, Sin City elected him mayor.
Yeah.
But anyway, this episode is actually about Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. He's one of the major crime bosses from the New York Mafia Syndicate, and he's one of the guys that helped build Las Vegas into what it is today. So, Bugsy was born in 1909 in Brooklyn, New York, second of 5 children to Jewish immigrant parents. I don't know when the nickname came about. It was in his childhood at some point where his friends would say that he was crazy as a bed bug, and that's where the nickname Bugsy came from. And they said that because he had a really bad temper and really dramatic mood swings.
I can't, we've had bed bugs, okay? And we got them from somebody that was living with us at the time we got them. And they are a friggin' nightmare. The nickname doesn't make sense to me. So I've been trying to reconcile that in my brain, but it just doesn't make sense.
I don't know how they made it make sense either, but Bugsy also hated it. But that's the name that I know him best by, so I'm just going to call him Bugsy throughout this entire episode and hope he never listens.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, by the end of the episode, you'll know that he can't listen, so. So, at a very young age, Bugsy left school and he started his life of crime. And he started doing this after he met a mobster. I don't know if the guy was actually a mobster at the time because they were both elementary school age, maybe middle school.
Oh, geez. They could have been, honestly.
Dude, they were young. So he met this guy named Moe Sedway, and they created a protection racket in which they threatened to destroy pushcart owners' merchandise unless they were paid $1 not to. So it was quote-unquote a protection racket. So I feel like it's pretty much just a protection against them destroying them.
Yeah, like on A Bug's Life, the grasshoppers, threaten the ants and, we'll protect you if you pay us food, but the only thing they're protecting them from is themselves, so.
Yeah. I mean, there were other mobs, especially in the early 1900s and 1920s and stuff, that existed all throughout New York, especially in the Lower East Side, which is where they were. Like the Italian mafia, they were part of the Jewish mafia. The Irish mafia is also there.
Yeah.
And who knows what else. But yeah, there was a lot of crime going on at that time.
Oh.
So by his teenage years, Bugsy had already had a lengthy criminal record that included robbery, rape, and murder.
Gosh.
Yeah, as a teenager,
Jeez, that's gross.
he's already committed murder.
Poor kid.
Poor kid.
Yeah, like, what kind of a home life do you have that's gonna drive you to be that kind of a person?
Yeah, I didn't really see anything at all about his parents, like nothing.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a point in life where you have to be accountable for your actions. But having kids, it just makes me think about what his home life must be like. Anyways, I digress.
No, that's good.
Continue.
So in the early 1920s is when in the early 1920s, Bugsy met Jewish gangster Meyer Lansky, and together with Lansky, they created their first mob, and they called it the Bugs and Meyer mob. But okay, why did they call it the Bugs and Meyer mob if Bugsy hated the nickname Bugs?
Probably because at that point he had already gained a reputation as Bugsy, so
Yeah.
he just went with it. You know?
Yeah, but I don't know. But if you're going to create something, I mean, you're creating it. They're going to know it's you.
Yeah.
Why would you? I just don't know why you would use something you hate. Or maybe he didn't hate it the entire time. Maybe just later in life.
Maybe just as a kid he hated it. Maybe once he was older he had a different association with the nickname, and so it didn't bother him anymore.
Oh, I was thinking about the other way around, where he was okay with it as a child. And then later on he's just like, can you guys seriously stop calling me that? Because I really hate it. But the Bugs and Meyer mob helped protect their Jewish friends against the Irish and Italian gangs in New York. And the mob was also involved in gambling, extortion, bootlegging, and car theft. So the bootlegging part is from Prohibition.
Oh, yeah.
So this is during Prohibition. And bootlegging is also known as rum running. So the car theft part is when they would get bored and they would just randomly go rob people of their liquor, the liquor cargoes.
Nice.
Yeah. And there was like a lot of gunfights that would occur around someone trying to steal liquor during Prohibition.
Yeah, it stands to reason.
Yeah. And one of Bugsy's, it didn't say exactly who the guy was, like if he was in the mob or if they were just friends or something, but based on what he says, I think he was part of the Bugs and Meyer mob. Mm-hmm. But I have him quoted as saying that Bugsy never hesitated when danger threatened. While we tried to figure out what the best move was, Bugsy was already shooting. When it came to action, there was no one better. I've never known a man with more guts.
Well, he certainly had a reputation, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's maybe 15? Early 20s doing this.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, he's still a teenager.
Oh, jeez.
He's murdering and raping.
He probably had that not God complex, but immortality complex that young people have because their brains haven't fully developed, and so young kids usually think that they can't get hurt or they won't get killed, and so it makes them a lot more reckless in their decisions that they make, especially ones that are life-threatening. So a lot of his daring attitude probably was because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I just couldn't imagine at any point in life killing someone. But thinking about murdering when I'm in high school, yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I was focused on sports and boys, and I was good with that.
Yeah, again, look at what his home life must have been, you know? The way you're raised and the atmosphere you grow up in plays a lot into who you become.
Yeah, it sounded like his parents worked a lot because they were like poor.
Yeah, so he kind of raised himself.
So I think that's kind of how it was. Yeah, and then that's how he got into the mobs and the mafia and stuff. And they kind of like helped raise him or whatever. I don't know how gangs work, but...
Well, typically my understanding of gangs is they become your family. And so if that's your family's dynamic, that's who you become.
Yeah. At some point in the 20s, Bugsy met Charles Lucky Luciano of the Italian Mafia. Luciano is considered to be the father of modern organized crime in the U.S. And Lansky's account of how Bugsy and Luciano met was actually that Lansky broke up an altercation between Bugsy and Luciano over a prostitute.
Oh, jeez.
Luciano was trying to acquire the services of this prostitute. So I don't know what Bugsy had to do with it. It just says that Lansky intervened. So Luciano was known for his part in compulsory prostitution, which is forced prostitution.
Aww.
Yeah, but even though he had met Luciano, they didn't really have a lot to do with each other in the 20s, because this is when Lansky and Bugsy were running the Bugs and Meyer mob. And even though the Bugs and Meyer mob was mostly known for their theft, and I think mostly theft of those liquor cargoes, Bugsy was actually, this is where he really got into murder, because he became a hitman for his mob. And his partner Lansky would hire him out to other crime families to take care of business.
Taking care of business every day. Sorry.
I don't think that's the kind of business he was taking care of. So, yeah, he was the hitman for his own mob. And then in 1930, at the age of 21, Bugsy and Lansky disbanded their mob and joined the Italian-American Mafia syndicate run by Luciano. And in this mob, Bugsy was one of the founders of what became known as Murder Incorporated.
Oh, Murder Inc.
A murder for hire outfit. So Murder Inc., as you said, you've heard of Murder Inc.?
Yeah.
What did you know about Murder Inc.?
Nothing. I think
Before I tell you all the details.
I think it's like a Metallica song or something.
Oh my gosh.
Or an Ozzy song.
Is it really?
I don't know. Now I gotta look it up while you're doing this.
Murder Inc. acted as the enforcement arm of the Jewish mob, the Italian Mafia, and other closely connected organized crime groups. As the head of Murder Inc., Bugsy became part of executions of rival mob bosses.
I was way off. It's Bruce Springsteen. I'm sorry. Murder Incorporated is the song. Sorry. I had to interject that to save my reputation. All right, continue. You may go on.
So, Murder Inc. is believed to be responsible for between 400 and 1,000 contract killings.
Jeez, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, they're believed to be anywhere between that. I mean, it could be less. It could be a whole lot more.
Yeah, but still, that's a lot of families.
And he's early 20s running this. But the thing about it is...
Gosh, I'd be scared of him.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Murder Inc., so even though Bugsy was running it, he actually never got in trouble for anything. He never stood trial for a single murder in this Murder Inc.
Dude, that's the power of the mob.
Well, in 1941, though, the Murder Inc. was exposed, and it was subsequently disbanded. And it was by a former gang member who died suspiciously by falling from a window.
Yeah, like the Clinton killings. They're all quote unquote suicides in very suspicious manners, like getting shot in the back of the head.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much shady stuff going on. Not just today, but all the time. It never doesn't exist. So after Murder Inc. was exposed, there was a lot of trials and cases and stuff that followed.
Yeah.
But because Bugsy was never convicted of anything, it kind of just is no longer part of this story. But I do want to say that the one time that Bugsy did actually get arrested for something and was convicted, it was for gambling and vagrancy in Miami, Florida. And he paid $100 fine on this, and that was it.
That's amazing. I mean, in today's money, that would probably be $1,000 or something. It's not much.
Yeah. I mean, so he grew up poor, but getting into the mob and kind of being one of the head honchos of the mob, he was really making money.
Oh yeah, there's money in the mob.
Yeah.
Which is why they get away with so much. Aside from the threat of being murdered by a mob member, there's money. They pay people off. So of course he got away with all that stuff. I'm just surprised he got caught for what he got caught for.
Yeah. Something really stupid.
Yeah. something trivial.
Yeah, so making all that money, he was actually able to afford 2 homes, and he got into the New York City nightlife a lot.
Makes sense.
Yeah, which is kind of something that followed him into Vegas, I think.
Oh, well, yeah.
And California, and everywhere he went, he was always into the drinking. I don't think that when they were robbing those cargoes of liquor that they were just taking it for the mob.
I'm sure they drank quite a bit of it.
Yes, I would say that's a fair assessment. So, in 1936, so 5 years before the news of Murder Inc. came out and all the trials and everything, Bugsy had actually relocated to Southern California. And that was because he had learned that he was being watched by the New York City Police Department due to his close ties to Lansky and Luciano. And there's some enemies of his that wanted him dead after an alibi he had during the murder of 2 rival loan sharks, which he actually had a hand in gunning down, became questionable. So the alibi had something to do with he was in the hospital or something. And so there was no way he could have been a part of it. Oh. I mean, he had checked into the hospital, I believe. But then he just left and went back.
Tried to cover his tracks, but was sloppy about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the gist of what I got from it. Yeah. So in Southern California, he created gambling dens and offshore gambling ships.
Oh, smart. International waters.
Yeah, but if you're gambling out in the ocean in international waters, that sounds legit because technically, quote unquote, it's legal.
Right.
But who in this world of the mobs and mafia would not just go underground and do it? Me, normal person, I want to go gamble legally. I'm going to get on a ship owned by one of the biggest mob bosses and go out into the ocean to do this?
I don't know. Maybe it's a prestige thing.
He's definitely not doing anything legal because actually, according to the IRS, Bugsy was filing his taxes and saying he was getting all his money legally by gambling on horse races, and that's where all his money came from. I just think that's funny that.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I got it gambling, but legally gambling, and it has nothing to do with the mob.
Yeah.
So in California, I mean, he's running all of these things. He's running the syndicate out there, and he's involved in the existing prostitution, the narcotics, and the bookmaking operations. But the biggest thing that he's known for, at least within his mafia syndicate, was that he brought the race wire to California. And so the race wire is horse track gambling. So back in those days, bookies would take bets from people after they got an encrypted message from wherever the race was being held through a telegraph wire that would tell them the race results before it was announced to the public. Oh. So the bookies would take the bets after they already knew the results.
Oh, dang. That's shady AF.
Yeah. But people would still bet thinking they were getting a good bet. Seriously? Gambling from us Vegas natives, most of us don't ever gamble.
I think I've gambled once in my life.
But even when I do gamble, I'm definitely not gambling on races or sports. I don't understand, especially nowadays. I definitely just don't even understand how all those betting lines, because if you go into a sports book in Vegas, they are huge, and there's numbers scrolling across screens and all sorts of things, and I just don't know what they mean.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, but I've never been really interested in gambling. I don't have the luck for it, so.
Yeah. Well, when I was really into gambling, I was on the other side of the table dealing the cards.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. So I always came out a winner when I was gambling then.
No, well, yeah, because you're the one dealing out the cards.
And the one getting paid to do it.
Exactly.
So doing all these things, he was really getting wealthy, and he was actually able to buy a home in Beverly Hills, and he made friends with celebrities, and he frequented parties with the Hollywood elite. And he also formed and maintained relationships with politicians, businessmen, attorneys, accountants, and lobbyists, and they all fronted for him, and it allowed his mob's presence to grow on the West Coast.
I wonder how much of that was because they were paid to do it, and I wonder how much of it was because they were threatened.
I don't know if they were ever... I mean, some of them I'm sure were threatened, but I wonder just like the intimidation of just knowing who someone is enough of a threat.
Yeah, probably. It would be for me.
So he had all of this stuff going on in California, but remember, he is a part of the New York syndicate. Like, that's how he got into this like major mob where he moved to California for them. He had all this stuff going on in California, but he was still traveling. He didn't just stay in California.
Right.
So in 1937, he was in New York City, and he met this woman named Virginia Hill through a childhood friend. And his childhood friend's name was Al Capone.
Al Capone. Good old Al.
Yeah. Well, when they were friends as children, Bugsy would let Al Capone hide out with his aunt when there was a warrant out for his arrest.
Oh, wow. Isn't that so generous of him? Hopefully he told the aunt what was going on.
Oh, I don't know if I would tell my aunt. I mean, she could just be like, oh, he's here. He's not hiding out.
Hey, Aunt DM, can Al stay the night for a few nights or a week?
Just because his parents are being mean.
He's having trouble at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, trouble at home. He just needs somewhere to hang out for a little while. Dude, probably, honestly, that's probably what
I
it
wonder
was.
if Bugsy ever lived with his aunt, and then like Al Capone would like hide under his bed. I'm just imagining that because he's hiding out. He's hiding under my bed.
Oh my gosh, that's a great visual. Probably not, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah, okay. So this Virginia Hill character, she was actually nicknamed Queen of the Mob, and she was a member of the Chicago Mafia. And in Chicago, before she like really got into the Mafia, she kind of, I think, waitressed or something like that. But then when she got into the Mafia, her whorish ways really came out. Because she was passed around sexually between mobsters, and so she would have sex with them, but then she would also pass money and messages.
Ooh.
I know nowadays, like, you can't pay for sex, obviously. And so if, like, an undercover police officer is trying to get you, they won't have sex with you first. So maybe she has sex with them to make sure that they're not police. I mean, she obviously enjoyed it.
I'm just thinking about, like, condoms weren't really a thing back then, and so she probably was riddled with just disease, that poor girl.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say poor girl because she chose this life.
Yeah.
Like, she thrived in organized crime.
Jeez. Hard pass for me, thanks.
So I found this description of her kind of funny. So one man described her as more than just another set of curves. She had a good memory, a considerable flair for hole-in-the-corner diplomacy to allay the suspicions of trigger-happy killers and a dual personality, close-lipped about essentials and able to chatter freely and apparently foolishly about inconsequentials.
So she was a people person for sure.
Yeah, at least within the mob. I mean, she got the nickname the Queen of the Mob, so I wonder if she ever participated in any of the murder stuff, or if she just I don't know.
I don't know.
So Virginia met Bugsy through Al Capone, and she had met Al Capone through one of his bodyguards, who she met when she was sent to keep tabs on a member of the Luciano family in New York. And you remember Luciano is the guy that runs the Italian mafia. Yeah. So Luciano, she kept tabs on a member of the Luciano family, and she did this by becoming his lover. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I wonder how else she would have done it. It is what she's known for, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the way you do it. Yeah. Using that good old charisma and fancy body she's got.
So, while in New York, another Luciano associate introduced her to Bugsy, and they ended up in a hotel together that night. I wonder what they did.
Yeah, I don't know. Talked money.
Exchanged some money. But yeah, they didn't form a relationship or anything at that point in time. But after that, Bugsy went back to California, and I don't think they really talked at all for a couple of years. But Bugsy did have, what are you looking at?
No.
You see her picture?
I'm looking at the pictures of her. Depending on the photograph, she's really pretty. Like, coupled with a charismatic personality, like I can see why she she got far in the mob.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that would make sense because Bugsy was actually like the Hollywood poster child for the mob because Bugsy was attractive.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it would make sense that she'd be attractive too.
Right.
Especially if she wants to.
Yeah.
Sleep with all these men to get information. They're not going to want to sleep with someone that's not so pretty.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a relationship with her after that, but he did have romantic relationships with some prominent women. And one of them was a countess by the name of Dorothy Di Frasso. I believe she's Italian because in 1938, Bugsy went with the countess to Italy. And in Italy, he met Benito Mussolini.
Ooh, Mussolini.
Oh, yeah. And you want to know what he did when he met Mussolini?
What'd he do?
He tried to sell him weapons.
Oh, jeez. That's a bad choice.
Hey, Benito, you want to buy some weapons?
Yeah. Want to buy some weapons?
And I did that with that like Italian, my fingers up in the air that no one can see, but I did it when I was saying that. And so on this trip to Italy, not only did he meet Mussolini, he also met a couple of Nazi leaders, Hermann Göring and Joseph Goebbels. Those are the best of my ability on how to say their names. But yeah, he really liked Mussolini, but he really did not like these Nazi guys, and he actually offered to kill them.
Yeah, that's a good mark on his record. I'll give him that.
Yeah. So the only reason he didn't kill them is because the countess pleaded for him not to do it. And he met these guys prior to World War II, so I just wonder how differently World War II would have been if Bugsy wouldn't have listened to her and like just done his business.
Yeah, that would have been nice, but wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, if only. But, I mean, who knows? I mean, there were so many other bad guys out there that someone would have just probably taken their place, so.
Yeah, they certainly weren't Hitler, you know. They weren't running the show.
No, but they were definitely big enough names. At least I recognized Göring.
Right.
I wasn't so sure about the other guy, but I recognized Hermann Göring's name. So, a year later in 1939... Bugsy met Virginia again at a friend's house in Hollywood. And this is when they started a torrid love affair. And I say affair because Bugsy actually got married in 1929.
Ooh.
So, yeah, he's having all of these countesses, and the last time he met Virginia, and who knows how many other women, prostitutes probably even. I mean, he's running the prostitutes, so I would assume he'd sleep with them. Yeah. Well, he was married to his childhood sweetheart, and they actually had 2 daughters.
Man, that's sad.
And they stayed married until 1946.
Sad for his wife. That's really messed up.
So they had a, 15, 16, 17 year? I'm not doing the math because the math's hard.
The math is hard.
Yes. But anyway, let's go back to 1939. So yeah, he's married, but he's doing all these other things, and there's not really any information other than it was his childhood sweetheart. I didn't look into it because it didn't really play a part in how he became who he is.
What a jerk.
But yeah, in 1939, Bugsy and 3 of his associates, including this guy named Albert Tannenbaum, killed Bugsy's childhood friend and crime associate Harry Big Greenie Greenberg outside of his apartment in New York. And they did this because Big Greenie had threatened to become a police informant.
Well, if you're gonna
like, why would you threaten to do it instead of just doing it?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, if you're gonna become a police informant, you keep that on the down low. You don't broadcast that.
You don't tell anyone. Yeah, I mean, he kind of asked for it by threatening that. He should have known better.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
So, Tannenbaum actually confessed to this killing and agreed to testify against Bugsy.
Ooh.
And I don't know why he did that, but yeah, he testified against Bugsy, or he threatened to. And this implicated him.
People making these threats. Use your brain, Gad. You're going to get killed.
Oh, well, Tannenbaum, as far as I saw, didn't get killed, but I was going to say he was in jail.
That's lucky.
I mean, he confessed to the killing, so I mean, a lot of people can get killed in jail too. So yeah.
Yeah, a little shiv to the gut.
But yeah, so like I said earlier, Bugsy was never convicted of any crimes or any murders. So obviously that means that he didn't get convicted of this.
Right.
And one of the reasons was because 2 of the state's witnesses had died prior to the trial.
Oh, mysteriously.
And no others came forward.
Yeah. Well, if 2 witnesses had died, I most definitely would not testify against that person.
Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty dumb if they did.
Yeah. I mean, you have no guarantee you're going to be able to live past your testimony. So is it even worth trying? Because you're probably going to die. And then the case is going to get thrown out most likely. So not worth it.
So one of the other things, so yeah, obviously his stuff all got dismissed because he was acquitted because of insufficient evidence because, well, there was no one to, other than Tenenbaum, to testify. And at that point, it's like a he said.
Right.
But this trial actually gained a lot of notoriety because people found out about the preferential treatment that Bugsy was getting in jail. Like, Bugsy was allowed to have female visitors.
Conjugal visits?
Well, I didn't say that. I just said he was allowed to have female visitors.
Well, come on. It's implied.
I mean, it is implied, but I didn't say that.
You said it, not me.
He didn't eat the prison's food.
Where was he getting his food from? Or were they just bringing him outside food?
I assume so. I mean, it just says that he didn't eat the prison's food, so
he was eating something.
I'm assuming. Hey, maybe the female visitors were bringing him dinner, lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe he had 3 visitors a day.
Probably. That's a possibility.
And then he was actually also granted leave. Like, he could leave the prison. And he was granted leave to go to dental visits. I'm not sure if he actually always went to dental visits. And even if he went to a dentist, like, was he actually seeing a dentist at the dentist?
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just one of his, like, conspirators, like, mob partner that was just chilling.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, you bring the dentist to the prison. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. But that's why he gained a lot of notoriety.
Well, yeah, that'd piss me off.
But, so even though Bugsy wasn't convicted of Big Greenie's murder, I think it was because Big Greenie was in the mafia with him. He actually really damaged his reputation with this whole trial and everything, even though he was acquitted. Like, his reputation within his own mob, like,
oh, really?
Was really starting to not look good.
Oh.
And so there was actually another time that Bugsy stood trial, and that was in 1944, so 2 years after he was acquitted of the last one. Mm-hmm. And he was arrested for bookmaking, and after 2 of his celebrity friends, so yeah, he lived in Southern California in the Hollywood area. He had a lot of celebrity friends.
Right.
And after 2 of them testified on his behalf, he was again acquitted.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it said celebrity friends, but if you remember, I said that he was friends with, like, attorneys and businessmen. So, like, I don't know if they were, like, movie star famous or if they were just, like, other famous. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, back then, like, who had the better, like, reputation to be a character witness for someone?
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like today it would definitely be the lawyer or the...
Yeah.
But everyone is always starstruck sometimes. So, the story of Bugsy in Vegas, I actually thought you were going to ask me, well, when does Vegas come in? So the story of Bugsy in Las Vegas begins in 1945. So in the 1930s, I know I just said 45, but in the 1930s, Bugsy and Moe Sedway, do you remember him?
There's been a lot of names passed around.
Yeah, I know. I tried to eliminate a lot of them, but yeah. So Moe Sedway was the childhood friend that he used to work with to destroy pushcart owners' merchandise if they weren't paid $1.
Okay.
Yeah, the dollar guy.
Okay.
Maybe he's the Dollar General.
That was a good one. Okay, sorry.
So in the 1930s, Bugsy and Moe visited Las Vegas, and during this visit, Bugsy saw himself living there one day. And so due to the murder trial of Big Greenie and his bad standing within his own mob, he decided that he wanted to reinvent himself and diversify into legitimate business.
Oh.
Yeah. So in 1945, the opportunity presented itself for him to buy into a casino in Las Vegas. So Bugsy, Lansky, Moe Sedway, and Gus Greenbaum purchased the El Cortez Hotel and Casino. And Bugsy had a vision for the El Cortez when he purchased it. And he he wanted to turn it into what we know today as the mega resorts. So he wanted to have like all of the amenities under one roof, hotel, gambling, shows, food, beer, like all of that stuff under one roof. But because of his reputation for, well, you know what, for being in the mob,
murder,
the city of Las Vegas, the officials, they wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do with the casino. Like, they put stops to like everything he wanted, so he couldn't get the permits or anything
that sucks,
to do anything.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
So after only a year of buying into the El Cortez, they sold their shares and they moved down and bought into, I say moved down, it was like 4 miles away.
Oh.
They moved south down the Las Vegas Strip and bought into the Flamingo that had just started construction, and the owner of the Flamingo was having financial problems. And because they wanted to be out of Vegas, they saw this opportunity, because the Flamingo, and actually all of the Strip, is actually in the township of Paradise, Nevada.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. All my life growing up in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Strip is Las Vegas. That is like the highlight of Las Vegas. And you're telling me it's not even in Las Vegas, it's in Paradise? What kind of a freaking... That doesn't make any sense.
Only downtown, like as far as the places that tourists go, like Fremont Street that's in Vegas, but the Strip is not in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
And even the Las Vegas sign is not in Vegas.
Yeah, that's false advertising.
Welcome to Las Vegas.
Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas.
Maybe there's a disclaimer. It's too tiny, kind of like the
right?
Santa Claus card, like
yeah,
you put on the suit.
Oh my gosh, the Santa Claus. It's in super ultra fine print. This is actually paradise.
Yeah, maybe that's what's on the sign somewhere in the border.
Liars.
It says not actually in Las Vegas.
Gosh, that's so weird.
Yeah, so they bought into the Flamingo, and Bugsy wants you to believe that he named the Flamingo after Virginia, who loved to gamble and who he had nicknamed Flamingo after her long legs.
Uh-huh.
Well, he wants you to believe that, but the property actually already had the name when Bugsy purchased it from Billy Wilkerson, who was a real estate developer, and he created the Hollywood Reporter.
The Hollywood Reporter,
which I believe is a magazine.
Oh.
In Hollywood, just about celebrities. And like he had a hand in, or he did create the Hollywood Blacklist.
The Blacklist.
I didn't really look into it, but I think I don't know, a blacklist is like when you can't go places, or like you're shunned if you're on the list.
Oh, you're blacklisted. Yeah. That makes okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he like created the Hollywood Blacklist.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, and the Hollywood Reporter has something to do with, it's just talking about celebrities as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
I don't really read magazines, and I definitely don't read gossip magazines.
Yeah, me either. Like, unless I'm at the doctor's office waiting for my turn, like I'll pull one out, but that's about it.
Yeah, I won't even do that. That's what phones are for.
Well,
maybe back in the day.
Yeah.
When we first moved to Vegas.
Yeah, there you go.
Before phones became smart. So shortly after the construction had started and Wilkerson ran into the financial problems, Bugsy and his clan moved down there, and they actually owned 2/3 of the shares of the Flamingo. And so that meant that the Flamingo was funded mostly by the East Coast Mafia Syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
Bugsy was losing patience with the builder, because they were taking a lot longer to build this casino hotel property than what he had thought. I mean, he bought into it already knowing that there was financial problems, but along with his associates, Bugsy was really losing patience with the builder, and the builder was Del Webb, and there's actually a middle school named after Del Webb now.
Yeah, I was like, that's still around, that name.
Yeah, but one of the days when Bugsy was super frustrated with Del Webb, he actually told the guy that he personally killed 16 men.
Oh, wow.
And this, and this scared Webb, and I wonder why.
Yeah.
But Bugsy reassured him, and this is like the most famous quote from Bugsy. So he reassured Webb by saying, "Don't worry, We only kill each other.
No, don't worry. It's fine.
I just thought that was funny. That's like his most famous quote. We only kill each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
reassuring.
So when they bought into this, they bought in 1945. So in 1946, Bugsy decided that he wanted to change the agreement that he had with Wilkerson, where the mafia was owning 2/3, and he wanted it altered so that he could have sole control of the Flamingo.
Oh, well. Oh, side note. Del Webb Middle School was completed and opened in August of 2005, so it was the year before we graduated.
Why are you telling people when we graduated?
Because it's the best.
Class of 06.
Yep, the best one. Continue.
I digress.
I digress.
So, because he wanted sole ownership of it, he had coerced Wilkerson by threat of death.
Oh, yeah. That would coerce me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he got sole ownership, and Wilkerson went into hiding in Paris.
Yeah, I would too. No, I wouldn't even stay in the States.
I mean, if I'm going to hide somewhere, Paris is not a bad place. I loved Paris.
If you're going to hide in the States, they'll find you. Just leave the country.
So that vision that Bugsy had for creating the mega resorts that we have today, when he was owning the El Cortez, he was actually able to do that with the Flamingo. And I mean, that's how it's still here today, because eventually it was able to succeed. So he really wanted to supply the Flamingo with gambling and the best food and liquor and the biggest entertainment, but at reasonable prices, because he believed that these attractions would not only lure high rollers, but us commoners as well.
Oh, the common people. So generous.
I'm okay with being a commoner.
Me too. It's fine.
Hey, maybe someday we'll be big with this podcast.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see what happens.
Maybe. We're just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
But when talking about and researching murder is fun, I mean, that we're weird people. And we accept it.
Maybe you've got some mental health problems.
Hey, you don't need to tell everyone my problems.
Anyways.
But offering all of these things to everyone at prices that anyone could afford, he really thought that that was what was going to really create Vegas and like attract people to this desert city. And so during the construction process, because of his vision, he went on a spending spree. Like, he wanted all the finest wares that money could buy. And I thought this was really funny. One notable thing about the construction of the Flamingo was that he had actually had a secret ladder built in the presidential suite to escape if necessary.
Oh, that's a smart.
The ladder led down to an underground garage where there was a chauffeured limo always at wait.
Boring. Hopefully they took 30-minute shifts, because that sucks.
I doubt it. I mean,
probably one guy that just had to sit there.
Could you imagine being that chauffeur?
No, that would suck so bad.
Especially back then. I mean, first of all, you'd be really bored because, well, there's no phones to surf the web or play games on. And then, like, second, if Bugsy ever needed to escape, like, you were the one taking him.
Yeah. No thanks.
I mean, I'm pretty sure this was a job that, like, was assigned to someone and not, like, the application interview type, but still.
Yeah. Dude, the guy probably read a lot of books sitting there just waiting all day long.
Yeah. I don't know. I just imagine, like, this is when Bugsy's trying to be legitimate, quote unquote. So, like, how does a legitimized mobster find a getaway driver? I just imagine him taking out a want ad in the paper.
Right?
Legitimized mobster seeks getaway driver. Just in case.
Just in case. In all caps. Just in case.
I'll pay you to do nothing forever.
For indefinitely.
So, in conjunction with his caviar taste and the soaring material cost, the Flamingo, upon completion, ended up being 5 times over the original budget.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, just imagine that. 5 times over. And this is to build a casino, a mega resort even. Not even just a casino, like everything. I mean, they're like hundreds of millions of dollars now to make one of those. So
yeah, and he went way over budget.
Yeah, so towards the end of the construction, Bugsy was really pissing off his associates who had bought into this with him.
Well, yeah.
And not just because of his overspending, but he was also becoming really defiant. And he had, like, announced to his colleagues that he was running the California syndicate by himself.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very smart move.
And he was running the construction and everything for the Flamingo. Like, no help. especially after his reputation after the murder of Big Greenie, like, was really already hurting him. Like, why?
Yeah, he's shooting him.
But he thought he was invincible at this time, I guess.
Well, I mean, you got to look at his history. He thought he was invincible from the time he was a teenager.
True. So, in December of 1946, the Flamingo opened its doors as the West's greatest resort hotel.
No idea.
I think it was their first resort hotel. I don't know about that, but they labeled themselves the West's greatest resort hotel.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do with business.
But in December of 1946, when they opened their doors, they should not have opened their doors. Like, not in all caps.
Why?
The reason that it should not have opened is because he had some of his celebrity friends from California come to the opening, and they reported that they were welcomed with construction noise, and the lobby was draped with drop cloths.
That's massively embarrassing.
Yeah, so the rooms weren't finished yet, and the desert's first air conditioning system broke down regularly. I mean, it's kind of okay if the system isn't really working in December, but I mean, that's not really a good thing either.
He must have been hoping that people would come and start gambling, and he would start getting revenue that way that would help him finish the building. That had to have been his mindset.
I mean, that's what I would have thought.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
But that didn't turn out to be the case. I mean, he advertised the mega resort type business model, and he wasn't providing that. So after only a couple of weeks, and he was almost $300,000 in the red.
Oh my gosh, that was back then. That was how much it was back then. In today's money, my gosh.
So a couple weeks later, so by the end of January of 1947, he actually shut the doors on the Flamingo, like closed the entire thing down. It was just going so far downhill, like there wasn't any recovering without closing it. But luckily for Bugsy, his mafia friends, quote unquote friends, they gave him a second chance. And he was actually able to finish the rooms and finish all of the other remodels. And they reopened the doors on March 1st, 1947.
Were they funding this? Like, where was he getting the money to do this?
The mafia. Yeah, well, he wasn't, I mean, I think he technically was the sole owner, but I think that was just by name. Like, there was 4 of them that bought into it.
Right.
It was Bugsy, Lansky, Sedway, and Greenbaum all bought into it. Like, the same 4 people that bought into the El Cortez, when they cashed out, they just all, moved their money down to the Flamingo. And so, anytime he needed more money, it was coming from...
Well, it must be nice.
...the mafia syndicate that he was a part of, and he was running up a big tab, and they were not happy with him. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that.
So, when it opened in March of 1947, this time the Flamingo did turn a profit. And that's why we're able to visit it to this day.
Right.
So during this entire time that Bugsy was doing the construction operations of the Flamingo in Las Vegas, he was, according to him, solely running the crime syndicate in California. And he was also still having that affair with Virginia. Actually, I don't think it was an affair anymore because he got divorced in 1947 or 46. So I think it was a legitimate relationship at this point.
Oh.
But Virginia really didn't like Las Vegas, so she actually was, she stayed at her house in Beverly Hills most of the time.
Well, yeah, it's bloody hot.
Bloody hot?
In Vegas. It's freaking a death box there. I wouldn't like it there either. I didn't like it there. I moved.
I didn't move for that. I actually missed the weather, but I was tired of everything being shades of beige. Yeah. Beverly stayed in California most of the time in her home in Beverly Hills. And on the night of June 20th, 1947, Bugsy was visiting Virginia as well as one of their other associates. I don't know if it was hers or his or whatever. I mean, they were both in the mafia, so whoever this guy was there when gunfire broke out and an unknown assailant fired at Bugsy through a window and hit him numerous times, including twice in the head, killing him.
Ooh, that's a bad day.
That was
the last bad day of your life.
That was quite the tagline there.
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
So to this day, no one's been charged with his murder, and it remains officially unsolved.
Ooh. You know, that's very poetic. He got away with so many freaking murders in his life. It feels justified that nobody got caught for his.
But there's several theories about his murder. Some of them I mean, I just wrote down the headlines for each of them, and except for the one that I think is the most likely, so there's 4 theories, and the first one is that his death was a result of the overspending and possible theft of money from the mob during construction. And though the Flamingo did turn a profit the second time, it just didn't come in time to prevent his murder.
Yeah.
The second theory was that Bugsy was shot preemptively by this guy named Matthew Moose Panza. He was the lover of Sedway's wife, who informed him that Bugsy had threatened to kill her husband, because apparently Bugsy had grown increasingly resentful of Sedway over the control that the mob had over his finances.
Wasn't that the guy that he was friends with in childhood?
Yeah, the Dollar General.
Yeah. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is. Okay, so...
Yes. This guy is Sedway's wife's lover.
Wait, my brain needs to wrap that. So the theoretical murderer was Sedway's wife's lover.
Yes. So Sedway's wife was cheating on him.
So wait, so how is Bugsy involved in this theory?
Apparently Bugsy had threatened Sedway's life, and he told his wife, and his wife told her lover, and her lover killed Bugsy.
That theory's bunk. Next.
Theory number 3 is that there was a meeting in Havana, Cuba, where the board of directors, which was just like the top people from the Italian mafia, they held it in Cuba because I believe it was Luciano was actually like hiding out in Italy, and he couldn't come to the States because of warrants and whatnot. So they went to Cuba for this.
Okay.
Yeah. So they discussed at this board of directors meeting ending Bugsy's life.
Yeah, it checks out. Okay.
I think this took place when, I would say in like 46 or something. I think 46 maybe, or early 47, when the spending stuff was going on.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it kind of ties in. I think it kind of ties into the
first
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had this meeting and they talked about ending Bugsy's life, and the meeting concluded with a contract on Bugsy's life, which Luciano and Lansky were both in on.
Okay. I can see that being in conjunction with the first theory.
Yeah. I mean, I think theory 3 and 1 are one and the same.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. And the last one, like, I don't know why it's even a theory, because I have no idea who this guy is or why he would be involved, but the theory has it that Lansky had this guy named Carbo, who was a Philadelphia mob boss, murder him. Don't know why. Doesn't say.
Yeah.
But that was one of the theories.
That was probably bunk too.
But because I don't believe it, I didn't really look further into it.
Sounds like garbage.
And then that's kind of where we think it went.
Yeah, it sounds like he fell out with the mob, overspent, and pushed his luck, and they were just like, get rid of him.
Yeah, your luck has run out.
Massively.
Which happens in Vegas.
Yes, it does. Often. In fact,
but he wasn't in Vegas when his luck ran out.
Well, yeah, but he had heavy ties to it, so.
Yeah. So the day after Bugsy's murder, Dave Berman, Sedway, and Gus Greenbaum walked into the Flamingo and took over operations. Like, without even a thought.
Yeah. Well,
dude, Sedway was like one of his childhood friends. They grew up together.
So maybe that's why the theory of Sedway being involved in his murder is a theory, because he just walked in and took over. But, I mean, then again, you got to consider...
Yeah. But so is Gus Greenbaum, because Sedway and Greenbaum were 2 of the guys that went in on buying it with him.
Right. So, like, you got to consider they probably had to take over immediately so that business didn't tank. You know, after putting all that time and money into the Flamingo, they can't afford to let things go to crap.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way. I just thought about it like, oh, he's out of the way. Now we can take control.
No, they probably had to, from a business standpoint.
Yeah. So today you can find remembrance of Bugsy in the El Cortez, the Flamingo, and at the Bialystoker Synagogue in New York's Lower East Side. I don't know if I said that right, but that's the best I could do because I am not Jewish. So that concludes this episode of Vengeful Vegas, True Crime in Sin City. Our very first episode on the mobster Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, who was instrumental in forming Las Vegas.
And remember, safety isn't expensive, it's priceless.